Suicide is one of those subjects where, if you really get into it, then you'll learn some really interesting things about the ways people think, and their beliefs and their attitudes. A lot of people see suicide as immoral or unethical or even sinful. Obviously, if someone kills themselves because they're being bullied or victimized in some way, that's a terrible thing. Does our society do enough to protect emotionally vulnerable people from cruelty and abuse and violence? I honestly don't think so. But anyway, G.K. Chesterton calls suicide the ultimate and absolute evil, the refusal to take an interest in existence. To call suicide an absolute evil is quite ridiculous, in my opinion. Sometimes suicide is an irrational act. I would go as far to say that sometimes it is a cowardly thing. But not always. Should a person have the right to choose death as a last resort? Should suicide be seen as a legitimate act where the alternative is far worse, or at least viewed as such? My personal view is that life is for living. I want to live and live well, and I want the same for my fellow human beings. And if I knew a person close to me who was seriously considering killing themselves, and assuming this person wasn't terminally ill or in unbearable pain all the time, I would try to talk them out of it at least. And I may even try to physically intervene, depending on the circumstances. That being said, my philosophical position is this: a person owns their own body. If a person owns their own body, they own their own life. And surely a person's body and a person's life is theirs to do with as they choose. Now, some folks will argue that your life is not your own. You belong to God. You're one of His children, some say. Only God gives life, and only God has the right to take it away. That's one worldview, which comes from Christian philosophy, I would say. But you don't have to be religious to oppose suicide, of course. I've heard people put forward the "your life isn't yours to take" argument in different forms, on different grounds. Sometimes the emphasis is on laying down a heavy guilt trip. Sometimes the focus will be on potential and obligations, although this also comes with a big slice of guilt, I've noticed. The thing is, if you believe that you do have the right to do with your body as you want, then that's the bottom line, really. If, for you, freedom is self-ownership, then no heavy guilt trip is likely to get to you as it's intended. I believe in self-ownership and bodily autonomy anyway, and I know many others do too. So, statistically, men are far more likely to kill themselves than women. 3 to 4 times more likely, actually. I don't know why that is. I really don't. A lot of people here in the West view suicide as criminal, and of course that has a lot to do with the cultural dominance of Christianity. However, in certain cultural settings, self-immolation, or I should say suicide in the form of self-immolation, has been used as a medium of protest. And during the time of the samurai in Japan, suicide, or seppuku, was expected and respected as a means of atonement for failure. Suicide is defined as the intentional taking of one's own life. But does the prime goal of an act have to be the ending of one's own life for the act to be considered a true suicide? If I sacrifice myself to save another person's life, knowing full well that I'm going to die, a real sacrifice, is that suicide? Some would say no. I would say yes. Whether the prime goal of the act was to kill myself or not, that doesn't have any bearing on the fact that I've intentionally caused my own death, does it? What about those who choose to fight against a much stronger enemy in the knowledge that they will be defeated and killed on the battlefield? What about those who choose death rather than slavery, is what I'm trying to say here. Is it wrong to choose death where the alternative is slavery? That's the question. Comments below, please. I think it's worth saying this in conclusion here. Most suicides are carried out by people with some type of mental disorder. A lot of the time, substance abuse is a factor. Sometimes suicide involves a personality disorder. Major depression and alcoholism are apparently the specific disorders most strongly correlated with suicide risk. According to Wikipedia, and I've read this somewhere else if memory serves, worldwide suicide rates have increased by 60% in the past 45 years, and it is currently the 10th leading cause of death. Now, why there's been a big increase in the past half century, I don't know. Perhaps someone watching this video who's more knowledgeable about this than me can educate me. But I think I'll have to look into that one myself. Anyway, catch you later, YouTube. Peace.